Who's raising money during crypto winter? Well, Microsoft is leading a $20 million funding round for a decentralized data warehouse called Space and Time at a $300 million valuation. Joining us now in the studio is Nate Holliday. He's the co-founder and CEO of Space and Time. Nate, great to have you in the spaceship.
Thank you for having me, and it's great to be here, so I really appreciate it.
All right, great. So you're a startup, and you've been running for about a year and a half now. Tell me how it was like raising money in a down market and what Space and Time is all about.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, if you think about data and data privacy, it's one of the most important topics for individuals in the world, and it's also an important topic in every boardroom throughout the world. And if you think about what Space and Time is building, we're building a decentralized data warehouse. And as we know today, a lot of business runs on SQL, and a lot of business processes run on SQL. And we need to be able to ensure that we can create data privacy for users and constituents of the internet. And in order to make sure that the privacy for these users is protected, right? That there's not a centralized database that controls and owns and operates user data throughout the world. And so what Space and Time, what we're building is a decentralized data warehouse, meaning community-owned, operated nodes that anyone can participate in, and that we can combine on and off-chain data at scale to be able to directly connect data from all centralized databases within Space and Time to be able to connect data back to smart contracts. Today we know smart contracts are very limited in use cases. You have very limited data that can be processed through smart contracts, and the complexity is very limited.
So this is really interesting because, you know, a lot of DeFi projects are actually run on something like AWS, a centralized service, which seems very ironic to me. So will this replace something like Amazon Web Services?
Yeah, no, it's a really great question. And if we think about it, you know, we're really excited, for example, to partner with Microsoft. Right? Microsoft sees a world that they want to meet people where they're at, and they want to be available to provide decentralized services for them. You know, if you think about, we rely on large-scale servers in order to run large-scale data and analytics throughout the world. And so we're excited to partner with people like large cloud providers like Microsoft and others. Now, if you think about that, though, all these decentralized applications that are being built today, you're right, they're being built on centralized databases, centralized data warehouses. And unfortunately, right, you start to wonder, like, are these really decentralized applications if all the data is centralized today? So you look at GameFi, you look at DeFi, you look at enterprise applications that want to build truly decentralized applications. We provide now a value that you can come build with us. And we invite those that are building different projects throughout the Web3 ecosystem to look at Space and Time and come build with us.
Okay, so you mentioned SQL, of course, and for those of us who are of a certain age and remember building databases using SQL, how easy is it to integrate? I mean, you mentioned Microsoft is involved now, so exactly, you know, here, let's say I have an enterprise, I have a lot of SQL databases. Yep. What exactly am I doing? Do I have to recreate everything for you guys and to decentralize it, or is it just basically yeah, you know, can you explain that whole, I don't explain the whole process, but at least, you know, how easy is it for a large enterprise to integrate?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thanks for the question, Lawrence. Like, if we think about it, right, with SQL today that's being run in centralized databases, we make it very easy for you to port that SQL to run it on Space and Time. Now, what's really unique is, think about it, we don't actually own the decentralized node operators. Like, it's community owned, which means anyone can participate in Space and Time's node operations. And because the SQL that's being run within our servers, right, we don't necessarily own, it means that we can't necessarily trust exactly the data that's coming out of it. So we have a really novel, unique cryptography called proof of SQL. That means that we can actually guarantee the storage of the data, but more importantly, that we have cryptographic proofs for the SQL being run, that we can ensure that the query being run hasn't been tampered with, and that we can directly connect that data to smart contracts. So to your point, you know, we can port SQL directly over where it's operating within Space and Time. We can actually, if we want to work with decentralized, if we want to work with centralized databases, we can actually help them create trustless analytics as well, where they can connect their centralized database using proof of SQL to smart contracts as well, right? So we can turn any centralized SQL database into a trustless database, meaning that the data that's being delivered to smart contracts and on-chain has the tamper-proof guarantees that the data hasn't been tampered with, even though it's running in, for example, a centralized database. But the porting of SQL is SQL standards, right? So it's very easy to run SQL that's being run in a centralized database within space and time, and we have, of course, all the APIs to run it as well.
So one of the big challenges in data privacy has been that despite the fact that many users or consumers are always complaining about it, they don't actually take proactive steps to protect their privacy, right? Like they'll complain about Facebook, but they'll keep using Facebook. They won't read the terms of service agreement. Or, you know, even some of the cryptocurrencies that have privacy features, users aren't taking advantage of that, right? Have you seen, because basically it comes down to convenience versus privacy, right? And people often choose convenience. I'm just curious if you've seen any shifts in that trend, because it seems like this would be something that would be very relevant to the product that you are working on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you think about it, there's, you know, from a CRM perspective, there's customers that businesses are trying to manage your relationship. They want to own your relationship. And if you think about the centralized applications and the centralized databases, you know, for a while now, they've been trying to figure out how to best monetize the consumer data. Right now, if you're operating in a decentralized network where people don't, you know, they're not giving it to a central organization. You know, we provide now the privacy rights back to the individuals that are participating in the network, right? And so it's a completely different model than giving your data, for example, to a centralized database or to central applications. And so, you know, we're mindful of this. We believe that there's a different way to do that, and that's the journey that we're on.
So if you're going to be decentralizing these centralized data centers like Microsoft's Azure, is that what's going to happen? You're going to be able to decentralize those Microsoft servers on Azure and make them decentralized? And if so, how can people get in on that and, you know, provide the mining, or not mining, but the nodes to make it decentralized?
Yeah, so we're not building we're not necessarily looking to build a decentralized cloud provider, right? It's specifically a data warehouse. So there's data warehousing applications in businesses that are being run today on Microsoft Azure, for example, for AWS. And the challenge is as you're running centralized databases within a central cloud provider, the question is how do you take that data and connect it to the blockchain? How do you connect it to smart contracts to prove the analytic results that are coming out of those centralized databases are tamper-proof? And we see a world where this bridge of analytics and data is going to start coming together more from a Web 2 perspective and a Web 3 perspective. And so we don't think of it necessarily as a replacement of, for example, a cloud service provider, or a replacement of, for example, a centralized data warehouse. But we say, if you're looking at, you know, running analytics, and you want to take SQL and you want to connect that directly to a smart contract to expand the use cases of smart contracts, right? To have more automation and trustless automation without human intermediation, right? The question is how would you do that? How would you do that without space and time, where we have proof of SQL, where we can not only guarantee that the storage isn't tampered, but we can also guarantee that the SQL statements being run haven't been tampered with. So as we think about that, we think it's additive, right? We think that we can partner with, you know, the databases that are centralized of the world, but also partner with the cloud providers as well, because we need to make sure that as we're interacting with smart contracts, at the end of the day, that we can automate those processes and run a much more expanded use case that basically says, if you're running business process today and you're using SQL, we can actually guarantee the results of that SQL statement can be delivered to smart contracts and open up a whole new set of use cases for the world.
People can actually become node providers.
Absolutely.
They can go into that and earn rewards.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So if you think about it, if you want to participate in this network, you can, right? You can come, you can participate, you can operate nodes, you can be incentives and reward.
Who are the big names you got going in there right now? Name some names.
As for node providers?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. Obviously, we're working, you know, in earnest with Microsoft. We're launching our first product here in November, so we're excited to launch a product. We're talking, of course, to Foundry and a few others as well. So as we think about initially, right, we want to make sure that we have big names that are operating nodes at scale to make sure that we have the resources required to run large-scale analytics. But as we continue to roll this out, right, we want to invite more and more people to participate in the decentralized network. Obviously, nobody can own more than 51% of the decentralized network, and so we invite everyone to come and join.